But the thing is,
Yes, yeah, so I heard.
make sure it's done.
Yeah, they had fun. She's on the equestrian team. What did I do, right or wrong? All right. Those are the last ones. Okay, do I new ones in there? I'm used to the clipboard thing. This UI's got me all messed up. Oh, I gotta sit back and it's just gonna happen for me. It's magic. If they have pens.
But I still think it's good enough.
And where's my go-to location for this? Where do I dump them off when I'm tired of?
Oh, you can just leave them here.
Really? When did that? That's like whole new.
Well, we have a box of registration, but
Okay.
I'm coming here anyway.
Because you miss us.
Absolutely.
Ah, that's it. We're the last ones. Fair enough. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'll check on it. Just in case, if there are several people, I mean.
We're always having
several
fun.
people name is saying, you know, we should not put up or something. But, you know, that normally doesn't happen.
So technically, we've started,
Take your chances like you, but they
right?
have to check on those.
Well, Stig is the last part, right?
It's all about Stig.
And now blue sheets.
Sheets of blue. Is this, someone will read this here? Or is this provided for us?
Someone wants to dongle.
Okay, I will leave it attached. It's so dongly and all.
Well, you know, I have this ultra weird one, which is like reports connected to a V port, which is the VGA. It's kind of
Hey, it's all slideshowy. Hi, Mike. And now suddenly I'm responsible for the pen. There should be another clipboard here with blue on it. So this one seems to be posed. I will delegate to the
I would Juniper, man.
AD. Perfect.
Probably worse.
I have a Juniper laser pointer. That's all I got.
Not really 15, maybe never.
So we are to start as of 3 minutes ago, correct? Welcome to MBONED. Let me start with a request for a minute taker, please. This is a requirement before we go forward. You're presenting, I'm not going to harass you. I know I've harassed you in the past.
I would have done it.
Don't say that until someone else volunteers. Mike, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, I knew it. Everyone give Mike a big round of applause for that. Nice, I'm stepping up. Note well noted. There, great. So the agenda today, we got some status items, pretty simple list. We actually have, well, we've got 3 things on the agenda, but one slide deck has not showed up yet. And I don't even know if they're present. So,
For the first one?
yes.
I will.
Pardon me?
I will ensure the presentation for the.
Slides were not submitted.
Okay, good.
If you have slides, you can like email them or something, or.
Okay, so I will. Actually, I think you don't even need the slide, but I will put it.
You will put
There is only one slide.
one slide. Okay. Email me the slides. I'll move you off to the bottom of the agenda. We'll take it from there. Any other agenda items missing or need abusing or modified in some way? All right. So that means I will take, you got them both. Look at that. You're going to go back to back here, right? All right. First will be up. We'll start with the interdomain peering and then the discovery, which is the new draft, right? Okay. Before we get there, let's talk about active status. We got, so we have this mtrace v2.12. It's been around for a long time. And they're asking for a working group last call. Now, who here has actually been keeping track of mtrace and has read the current draft? We have no one in the room who's read the current draft. So that's going to be really hard to take a request for last call in the room here. We can take it to the list, but my experience tells me that I'm not going to hear a response from you guys, and that's tough. I'm wondering why we're here. You hear me, bad cop thing once again, right? So I think ops is needed here. I think we have that catch-all problem that's been discussed quite a bit in the IETF about multi-point services, but so I won't drag it on here. We have the address acquisition. We have the peering BCP, which actually Lenny requested some ops input from outside. Mostly I think it was the Internet 2 community, and we got some really good feedback from them. 1.2 about, well, I'll talk about when you present, but I think that was some good operational feedback. So it makes me kind of wonder, where are our ops folks, right? They're not in this group, but when we asked for it outside, we got some good community there. So that was great. I'm not gonna say you are definitely ops, right? You're as ops as they get here, but you're the author. So we need other feedback. So I think that, hopefully, you found that beneficial as well?
Not only that, but both of them did say it was needed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good. That's a solid point. All right. Then we have mic stuff, which we need to discuss whether we adopt here. Now, was this presented in PIM? It was not presented in PIM. It was referenced in PIM. The need for it was referenced in PIM. Okay. So, but it should live here if we do anything. All right. So who's read the current Wi-Fi multicast problem statement draft? Hey. All right. All right. Excellent. And of those, who thinks this is something the group should take on? And I see unanimous from those who've read it. That's pretty darn good. So we'll take it to the list, and I expect the same 5 of us to respond. And we'll go from there. Interesting. Discussion in an area now. Was that actually presented already, Mike?
No, it wasn't presented anywhere else, but there's a lot of discussion among many different working groups that you may remember that may have been, I think they included MBONED. So I think that's, I think Galvaro and others have been talking about it from an AD perspective on, and I don't know what's happening in that.
All right. And do we expect interaction with IEEE then? Or do we think this is going to be a purely IETF solution?
IETF needs to decide if they want to be part of this problem space or not. I think we could define the problem space here, and IETF as a whole needs to decide whether they want to tackle it.
Gotcha. And then have a liaison and work at that route? Stig has input.
Stig, yeah, so I think, you're talking about like IEEE protocol and stuff, so there might be things that has to be done in IEEE, but it's very important, I think, that we can document all the issues and stuff, and so they can go to IEEE and
Perfect.
Look at this, something needs to be done. And
Okay. It makes a lot of sense because clearly, since they don't really have a solution in that space, they don't understand the problem. So if we can define what that problem is, then they have something to work on.
maybe they even have some partial solutions if they understand what problem we have. I don't know.
Okay. And end of that. Okay, so Percy. Change scale to find stuff, sorry. Nope. That's one. But we're starting not with that. We're starting with BCP, yeah. That would be 2. No. 3. No. Why is it not up there? Oh, because it's enumerated 0. It's 0. Yes, it's 0. Phew. It gets fixed.
Yes.
View as. Got it.
Okay.
Yes, take it away.
All right. This is the interdomain peering multicast BCP, and as Greg mentioned, we've had it's in last call. We've got 2 sets of comments, pretty substantive comments. Who was the first person? I mean, I know the name, but who was he from? Which?
He was probably a university ops writer, or he might have been core to Internet 2, but I'm not certain. So the Internet 2 community has got a multicast working group that's been involved quite a bit, and they had quite a bit of peering from the customers, connectors across the core. So it's a good example case.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to present the comments and the responses that Torles also helped us construct. Okay, so the person that was Dale Garda, and his first general comment, this would have been great 10, 15 years ago. Why now? Well, our response, we are seeing a significant increase in video delivery, distribution via CDNs, as well as industry acquisitions. And speaking with my company hat on, AT&T, we just acquired DirecTV. We are going to have a significant increase of video delivery based on that. Torles pointed out there's going to also be a reduction of IPTV head-ends, reuse across multiple regional networks, more interdomain multicast is going to be needed. Like I said, we're going to have a lot of increase in on-net, off-net, over-the-top video distribution, rapid increase in the role of multicast. So delivery across service providers, source content providers, third-party channels, and it's challenging to have a good compromise between too little, too much. Hopefully this will be just right. So that's our first response. Next slide, please. These are the specific comments in section 1. Why do we assume only compatible protocols across administrative domains? Answer, incompatible protocol resolution may require a new RFC in its own right, which is out of scope. We can point that out as a gap if needed. That can be pursued as a separate new work. And Torles pointed it out, maybe compatible is not the right word. What we're focusing on here is a subset of best available, IETF preferred, standardized protocol options. If we want to go beyond that, it would be a much larger document. Again, another comment on section 1, AMT only applies to 3 out of the 5 use cases. I think we mentioned that it applies to all 5. That's not true. We will change that. That was a good comment. Next slide, please. Section 3.1, request was to add text to the guideline C for policy to allow certain groups only from administrative domain 2. We agree to that. We'll make the change. And he wants to add another guideline, a new one, to ensure proper filtering between networks, and he supplied text to us for that, so we will take care of that. Section 4.3 was the most telling comment, is the IETF dictating how to operate one's network? My initial answer was, hell no, but I can't put that down. Answer is absolutely not. This is a BCP, it's a guideline, it's not an RFC, it's not prescriptive, it's not normative, it's simply a way for 2 operators, if they wish to communicate on how to set this up, this is the guideline as to how to do it, that's it. Next slide, please. Section 5, wanted to add a description for looking glass style method for faster resolution for supplied text. Again, text was supplied, we agreed, we accepted that. Next slide, please. Section 6 wanted to add text to invoke BCP 38, which was published a long time ago. Something like each multicast peer must employ BCP 38 style filtering to ensure they're not sourcing content or control that should not be legitimately sourced. Torles supplied the answer. BCP 38 was not written with multicast knowledge, so it may be dangerous to explicitly refer to it. Again, we basically are leaving it at that. I think we did supply text back to them before you said he didn't, he was okay with it, that we don't have to address it. Next slide, please. And here comes Lenny's comments, and too bad he's not here. Comment 1, document is too long, at 28 pages. So our initial response, and this is kind of polite, this is intended only for operator to operators to set up inter-domain multicast delivery. Typical question would be, do we have a standard that we can follow? That's all this would point to, and whatever is needed in the standard is what is there. I mean, the length of the document does not come into play at all. Next slide. Then Lenny says why he thinks the document at 28 pages is too long. He doesn't like sections 4 to 6. Do whatever you are doing from a unicast peering, and that would be sufficient for him. And this is our response. Several meetings, the same comment has been made by Lenny over and over again. We push back strongly. We believe these sections are necessary for a complete BCP. Again, the target audience is service providers, content source providers, third-party distributors. If we wish to join together with others, we need to have some kind of a standard document, even though it's a set of guidelines. Whatever needs to be done, it has to be there in some form. And basically, that's it.
So I believe I'm still on the author's list, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll speak as an author. I think what we have here is fairly unique in comparison to what we have in the Unicast world. In the Unicast world, it's all the network operators. They're looking at routes, peering points, policies, they're done. What happens with Multicast is inherently integrated with the content owners of some kind, who may not be network aware, who may not understand what happens when traffic crosses boundaries and peering points. And so I think a little more articulation is required because the audience is considerably different than what a Unicast BCP may be. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Too bad Lenny's not here.
He's listening remotely. Hi, Lenny.
I hope. Okay, next slide, please. So then what I did was we tried to go through sections 4 to 6 to see what it is that's causing so much angst. First of all, we did remove the previous section 4.4 on settlements. It's taken out of the document. Then what's left is, in terms of pages, you see here section 4, 5, and 6. I did make a mistake in 4.2. It's not 6 pages, it's 4. That's the routing aspects. We could move the routing aspects to section 3, which would then leave about 7 pages of the remaining text, which we can then determine whether it's needed or not. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay. Can I address this
Yeah.
one as well? So early on, I had pushed back quite a bit in terms of where logging takes place and billing information, and I kind of admittedly gave up that battle because you guys are coming from the operational side, but we did get pushback from our outside response. This is the same thing. When we're talking about network BCP, it's network BCP. I think content logging doesn't have to be in the network. It could be at the application side, and billing the same way. To think we're going to be having those billing points on a per flow basis, granularly defined at each peering point, it's a lot of overhead to put on a BCP. And most of that is done bilateral, behind closed doors. So I don't think there's really a BCP on that.
Which is okay, but again, take a look. Billing is like
It's 3 pages.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next slide, and I'll tell
Okay.
you what logging is about.
All right.
All right. So then we looked at some of the possibly related stuff that we could have looked at to try and reference. All right. In the CDNI working group, they've got a logging interface draft that's working on. Specifically, the interface between 2 CDNs, upstream and downstream. They're interconnected, and they're exchanging logging information. It's 49 pages in length and growing. In our document, it's less than 1 page. Again, all that we're trying to do is minimize as much information as possible, but just keeping it there. Again, in our experience, this is the kind of stuff that other operators will look for.
Sure.
So again, we don't think it's too much. If we agree to find some text to delete, that's okay. But we believe it needs to be there. Okay. Next slide. Section 5, actually, we didn't even have it in our original document. Comment from Dallas in IETF92 that we do need a section on troubleshooting. And so we started adding some text on that. And then Dale Gardner said, you need some more text. He provided some additional text, which is about, I don't know, 6 or 8 lines of text. So we plan on adding that as well. So again, the feedback is that this is necessary. So we're putting it in. So summary, again, we've been having these discussions, 4, 5, 6 meetings. Lenny keeps pushing to reduce the size. We keep pushing back. If there are appropriate references that we can find, that we can start deleting text and simply referring, great. If not, it's not a whole heck of a lot. Then I think just 2 more slides. Next slide. Some specific comments from Lenny. Why ASM? Why not? Why SSM? Why not ASM? And then he also mentioned something like an odd list of protocols. Well, the current mode of operations that most operators are indulging today is SSM. If there's some additional language that we need to put in, again, that's going to increase the size of the document. But if Lenny wants some more explanatory text on the protocols, we could do that.
So I would argue, this is Greg again, with author hat on, I'd argue that articulating requirements for ASM would just extend the security section like infinitely. Now, the whole reason we're going to SSM, I mean, there's lots of motivations, but really security, I think, is the #1 reason.
Okay. But I will say this, if we want to complete BCP, if we want to articulate, even in a few sentences, something related to protocols, we're willing to do that.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Celebrity deathmatch.
Guys, this is Stig. I think it's fine to focus on SSM, but I would say though, I mean, there are people doing ASM. As you say, there's lots of security issues and other things. So BCP for ASM might be even more necessary than SSM.
I don't disagree. Maybe it has to be its own doc.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the way, yeah, there's also things like how to do MSTP and other things, I guess, and filtering. And anyway, this is IPv4 only, or is it IPv6 as well? By the way, I don't remember. But it's the same considerations.
Oh, yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I think the architecture and policy is independent of the family.
Yeah, at least for SSM. Yeah. Okay.
Last slide. Lenny suggested maybe AMT and GRE use cases may not even apply, and there we disagree strongly. We have set up multicast across our own internal domains with AMT tunnels across it. It's very applicable to us. Our backbones connecting to the new access networks as we acquire them, the peering points are not native multicast enabled. We need them. Again, as we push out to more and more CDN type operators, we're going to need them. In some cases, we deployed the GRE tunnel. Torres provided some text on the duplicity where GRE and AMT could be deployed simultaneously. Hopefully, by the use of this document, such duplicity may be avoided. Again, intent is to have a complete set of description regardless of the size. We can minimize the size, but this is necessary. So that's any questions?
I think that comment from you was a little bit more specific about actually helping to simplify, platform and design considerations when moving, because obviously Lenny is right, we started designing AMT from the client into the network. So the hubs inside the network with AMT is basically a thing that for many people it may not be clear why it's beneficial. And the reason why it's beneficial is because you need to do otherwise 2 types of forwarding planes in hardware, performance-wise, with access control, with all the monitoring, right? And in GRE very often with more administrative overhead. So that's basically why we're saying that moving to AMT might be actually good simplification.
Okay, so what's the next step?
Next step is to take the comments, rev the doc, and then have a last call again. Okay. But I would suggest once we rev the doc, let's keep it within the authors right now to clarify some of this piece we all agree, and then publish it and give people a chance to reread it.
So I don't have to wait till the next meeting to do that?
No, right, do it right away, please.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and actually we have a bigger gap between then. The fall and spring is bigger, but that also means people the holidays slow down. So sooner the better. It's freshen the better.
But that doesn't mean we should hibernate.
Yeah. How can we go?
Although I'm,
Okay,
Fair enough.
all right.
All right, next. No. 2. How come some keeps coming up? 4. No, that's me. Should be 2. Why is 2 not? All right, I'm tired of this.
There you go.
1.
Yep.
Just a note, I hate the way it relabels in the proceedings document tool. You give it a name and then labels it enumerated by when you submitted it. I don't know who made that choice. It's very odd.
the tools team does accept suggestions.
Okay.
I think that was actually in there.
All right.
Okay, so this is a draft that we are proposing. It's actually an outcome from the BCP, where if you were to use an AMT, how would you find the most optimal AMT relay in order to maximize your AMT experience? Next slide. Scope is to develop an RFC to find an optimal AMT relay via the DNS-based procedure. Network is an SSM type multi-network environment. Connectivity between networks may or may not be multicast enabled. 2 requirements: the AMT relay determined by this procedure must have multicast connectivity to the source, and you want to maximize the multicast portion of the path, minimize the unicast portion of the path. The optimality policies or rules should be flexible. They could be based on distance, based on load, or some combination thereof.
Right. So can I address that? Because, so maximize multicast portion of the path, minimize unicast portion. You really want to keep that radius as far as possible until there's a load issue,
Okay,
right?
that's
Potentially,
right.
right?
Well,
Okay.
which is probably when the load.
Right. I mean, there's a reason why we potentially go around that. Now, that would be assuming that the load is on the node and not on the link, right?
And even when load comes into play, you still want to try and minimize the unicast portion.
Yeah, right. Right. The next closest radius point. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
All right. So next slide. The procedures got 2 requirements. Each network has 1 or more AMT relay with multicast connectivity to the source, and that wishes to serve content from that source must have an AMT DNS server that's authoritative for that source domain. All such DNS servers must be reachable by the same Unicast address, and the entries in those AMT DNS servers must map to the AMT relays in their own networks. And we got some notes at the bottom which clarify some of this. Instead of the end user's AMT gateway generates a DNS query of the form amt.reverses.inaddress ARPA. And basically, that's how the draft defines it. Go on to the next slide. It goes through a set of illustrative examples on how that's going to happen. You got a gateway or an AMT user down on the bottom here, who's linked to network 0. It's not multicast enabled, but the gateway determines that it needs to log on to a multicast stream from other network on the left. The source is S1. The AMT relays, AMT relay 1A and 1B, they're both multicast connected to the source. That's a requirement. And the question is, which relay would the AMT gateway down at the bottom of the end user, which one would it connect to? So it constructs a DNS query of the form amt.zyx1 in adder ARPA, and that goes to the local DNS in this network 0. Next slide. Local DNS server is not the authoritative for the domain. However, it recognizes the .ARPA, so it sends the query to the ARPA DNS to get the address for amt.zyx1. Next slide. The ARPA authoritative DNS server is aware of the DNS server in network 1. It will then redirect the local query to that authoritative DNS server in network 1. Next slide. The DNS 1.1 authoritative recognizes that it has an AMT type query, so it will redirect the query to the AMT DNS, DNS.1. And next slide. The AMT DNS determines that the policy here is shortest distance. It will therefore send the query back with the IP address of AMT relay 1.8. Next slide. And so now the gateway gets back that information and a path is established between the end user and the AMT relay.
So I have a question. How does it determine then which is the closest? And we know that was the lookup structure.
The DNS,
The authority?
this one,
Okay.
has all the network rules, all the network positioning, all the load information also at that particular time. So all the policy information will be contained.
Okay, so that box has got more than DNS running on it, right? It's got some sort of intelligence where this. You should have just said SDN.
And Lenny would like this track. It's only 7 pages.
For now. So I point out something. Everything that's been discussed here so far that I see is host gateway lookup. When you've got multi-hop DNS, have you considered an event where the router is a gateway and has to perform this sort of operation? Okay.
Yeah. Be nice to first get this.
Yeah, right. Understand.
accepted, and then we can add additional use cases.
Questions from the room? So the objective is to see if this gets adopted by the group. All right. Who's read the draft? Okay. Of those of us, you and I, who've read the draft, well, let me step back. Who understands this problem space in some way, even though haven't read the draft? Okay, there we go. And do you think this is a solution we need to articulate in the type of work that we should be addressing here in the group? All right. So now, those of you who have had their hands up the second time around, not the first, can you please read the draft? Gotcha. Give us some honest feedback on that. All right. So we can take it to the list. And again, at the list, when we're asking for adoption, positive is as important as negative, right? But give some feedback as to that so that we understand what we need to do to address the concerns. Absolutely, yeah.
Is it related to this? Okay,
Oh,
send it to me
good.
as well.
Good. Right. We might have, parallel solutions. We might want to have the group collaborate in something that's more unified. And send what, depending on what you've got.
You want to make a lot of people happy. No, unhappy by suggesting it. This is involving some other problem, but anyway.
Well, and now you just have me curious. Hope it's not a zombie. We've been killing them for decades. No. All right, so we'll take it to the list.
Okay.
Respond from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McBride.
I have a question about the agenda. This is the agenda on the website says Chung Sun will be the presenter in the beginning.
Yes, but the slides were not sent to me in time.
It was sent. We are all CC'd. It was sent quite early, right? We all received the authors.
The trans?
Yeah.
I didn't get it. Lenny didn't get it. We requested last week. We requested several times this week. I got no response from anyone. So if you had sent it in the past, I'm sorry I missed it, but you should have at least responded when I asked for agenda items and articulated specifically that this slide deck was missing. Now, we got a copy of it here, correct? And it was one slide?
Yeah, but it is already sent.
You emailed it?
Yeah.
Okay, so after he's done presenting, I'll go to email. I'll get the copy of it, update it for people who are remote, and then we'll present that slide.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I guess it's probably the system from China Telecom's mail system. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I asked for items, Lenny asked for items, then we specifically asked for the missing piece.
Yeah, you
So,
asked that and she replied you and CC us. And
okay, we'll take up, let's do the agenda right now.
Okay, so this draft was presented at the last IETF. A lot of discussions on the list, as I mentioned, with regards to problems with multicast specifically in a Wi-Fi environment. And there were many working groups copied on the list that eventually died down because they asked people just to stop keeping all the different lists copied. Since then, Brian Haberman has said as of today that he will create a new list just for this topic. So I'm sure that will be announced on the MBONED working group. But they want to have just a multicast Wi-Fi list that anybody from the different working groups can join.
So just an observation to help clarify the rationale for that, as opposed to doing it someplace that's pre-existing, is the IEEE is sort of spinning up an effort that is associated with looking at this problem as well. And so the idea is to corral the relevant people who need to look at this with respect to designing link layers, because among other things, they're actually thinking about this with respect to future work and not just existing 802.11, 802.15.4, et cetera work. So it's probably gonna have kind of widespread impact, and that's I think part of the thinking there.
Without overloading all the other lists of interested people.
Yeah, and also sort of containing it to those sort of problem space that it's in, as opposed to solving all of Multicast's other problems, or worse, exposing all of the other wireless problems to this community. So.
Yeah, so from my perspective, Charles Eckert, the funny part seems to be that the people mostly outside this room here complaining about the non-support for multicast primarily don't seem to care about the use case of actually having real multicast data traffic, but primarily when multicast is used for signaling. So we've basically got this wonderful, two sites that are not moving. One is IPv6, which, is using a lot more multicast because by the time they designed it, all the networks where multicast was free, cheap, easy bit, and so they used a lot of it. And then the wireless networks where they haven't seen a lot of real need for a lot of bandwidth streaming. And so now the question is, who moves first to improve?
Yeah, so I'm personally looking forward to MBONED potentially leading the effort, at least to gather requirements for this problem space. I think it's the right place for this to be done.
Look at this energetic group of people.
Exactly.
Just dying to take on some new work.
They love this stuff. So I personally think it's good that it's being done here. It's not intended to be, this is the solutions, although we do list a couple potential ideas that are being people kicked around. You can go to the next slide. So there's 3 issues. There's probably many others that we identify in the draft with the problem of multicast being used in a Wi-Fi environment. There's low bandwidth. The further you get away from the access point, the less bandwidth and reliability you have. There's increased congestion in a Wi-Fi environment. There's no acknowledgements for multicast when this implementation was created. It was optimized for Unicast. Multicast was seemingly an afterthought in this Wi-Fi environment, so we're left with what we have. Is you want to say it or no? No, okay.
Yeah, take it to the mic. If you got interest and input, we'd love to
We
hear
have
it,
time.
right? Alluding to things down the road doesn't help us. Getting engaged now would.
Joel Yegley. Yeah, there's also a time domain problem that involves the fact that modern systems use things like beamforming to actually direct signals at specific clients, or use multiple antennas that are the result of which is that they actually have substantially higher bit rates when communicating with a single device, irrespective of what the actual symbol rate is, than they do if they're communicating with multiple devices. So that sort of drives some of the solution space in terms of like the architecture of either present or future radio systems.
Good point. I'll try to remember that for the notes. I may not. I'll ping you. So Herman presented in PIM a potential solution for this, acknowledgements of multicast packets. He's got an idea that may or may not be adopted within PIM. But anyway, there are some options, and it's not just us that have thought about this, but we're the first ones, as far as I know, within the IETF that are putting together the problem statement in a draft form. Next slide. So there are some workarounds that the draft goes into. One of the common ones is this multicast to unicast conversion. Certainly that's an easy way out. Just unicast it. It's more reliable and it's going to have a higher success rate. So let's just do that. Something that came up on the list is that, again, 802.11 doesn't provide for layer 2 acknowledgements and retry. So the packet loss can be higher. So provide an L2 ACK for multicast, and that's exactly what Herman and maybe others are proposing. And there's more ideas needed as far as what's out there. So if you have experience in this field or colleagues that have experience in this field, please let us know and we can add that to the draft. So we can at least look like we're intelligent when we start presenting these kind of things to the IEEE. Next slide. So this is, I think, my last slide. So these are just some comments that were made from many, many emails. I just went through them and just kind of gleaned some of the more relevant ones that we will add to the draft. I will commit to doing that in the next couple of weeks. The first one was something that Torlis mentioned several months ago, and we will add that at the beginning of the draft, kind of a problem statement dealing with more of the business aspects, a little bit more of the history of it. So Turles, we're going to add you as an author, put this as the beginning of the draft, and you'll now be on the hook to participate in this draft as well. Some of the comments were, state requirements more. If we are going to propose to IEEE or whoever requirements, we should be clearly stating those in this draft. Maybe add a class of service specification to multicast packets. One of the comments was the multicast to unicast conversion that some vendors do to make this work successfully. None of it is standard. It's all done in their own individual way, which is true. IETF has to decide if it really wants to design IP over 802.11, which goes beyond what we do here, but it's a good question. We need to decide how good a performance is necessary in this L2 environment for multicast rate. With this high bit error rate that occurs in a Wi-Fi environment, what really should be the acceptable packet loss rate. And some of the comments were, multicast packets should be delivered with less than 1% packet loss, and it should be delivered within 200 to 500 milliseconds. For instance, duplicate address detection requires an answer within one second. And as somebody mentioned, I think it was Joel, that the solution space has been explored in the context of 802.15, so we should probably look to them to see what they've done and maybe extend that to wireless LANs. So there's a lot of things that we're intending to add to the draft. Greg's already pulled the room, so there does seem to be some interest in adopting this working group, this draft in the working group. My recommendation would be do so quickly. so we can put a stake in the ground saying, yes, MBOND is aware of this. We see this as an issue. We're stating the requirements, and we will disseminate that to the other people that would be interested in that.
And we're hungry for exciting new work.
And we are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look at
that's
that.
true,
Yeah.
actually. So, any comments about this draft?
Okay, we'll take a call to adoption on the list. Did you shop this anywhere else?
No.
Okay. Joel, you got a comment?
Yeah, I would share this with the interior. Because I think there's some discussion that's gone on over there.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I would share it with the int area,
Share what, the role?
the draft, as in, hey guys, you should look at this because we have this draft in MBOND, because that's another place where I have seen the emergence of this discussion, which is part of the reason why you heard from Brian Haberman, I think.
Right.
Okay. So,
Did that discussion happen because of this draft? do you think?
no, I think it happened because of the IEEE, which is where the mailing list thing came from.
Okay.
So, I think it's actually fine to adopt this and work on it here. I just think that there are other people we need to share this with.
Well, you said there's going to be a list
Information-wise.
created for this work, this.
That's what I heard,
space.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I need some AD guidance here. This is a larger area of work within the IETF and our interaction with the IEEE. It seems like operationally, this is where that problem space, problems that could be defined. But if there's a bigger audience of participants that should be involved here.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, like some of the other places where this is cropped up is in things like efficient neighbor discovery and sort of battery savings in that. And that's actually a V6 ops or a 6-man thing rather than a, well, I mean, 6-man is sort of the protocol maintainer for neighbor discovery. So that's sort of natural that would end up being there. So like this is a multidisciplinary thing, and I think it's awesome that we would want to work on that here. We just need to engage in some outreach. So
Thanks. The man with no tour? Done. Good. He has no tour. He's completely tourless.
I'm done.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Next steps. No, you're not done. You have another slide here, dude.
Oh.
Don't do this again.
So I think we're good.
Resubmit fuller consideration at next IETF. What does that mean?
This slide was from the last, when Charlie presented this last IETF. So
Is the draft in a form now that we can take to the group for adoption? Okay.
you know what? Let me add some stuff, add in this offer, then do that.
Okay, what are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, thanks.
Give me a couple weeks.
Okay, we have one deck left. I'm gonna go look for it. Get these off my menu. Bear with me. Just posting it up for the remote users before we present. So bear with me here. Almost there. Now we're at the mercy of the tools page. So give me a second. And it's uploaded. All right, excellent. 3 slides, correct?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Okay, so thank you. I am Lionel Moran. I will do the presentation on behalf of Kyung that have some trouble with the plane, I think. So it is about the address acquisition for multicast content. So the idea of the draft is to solve the issue when you have different IP version between the source of the multicast and the receiver. So the draft is presenting three different ways to solve this issue. One is called reactive one, saying that you receive an information and the receiver is able to detect that is not supporting the same version, IP version, so it will use a kind of mapping function. The second one is the dynamic one, saying that the provider network will modify the IP version if required. So it will be aware of the version supported by the receiver and will adapt the information according to this information. And the last one is a kind of administrative one. So either the receiver detects that the IP version is not the right one and it will request the specific information, or you are provisioning the receiver with both type of information and the receiver will select the right one. So next slide, please. So from the version 05 to the version 06, the only modification is removing everything related to transition scenario or multi-trans scenario, saying that it is applicable to any type of multicast scenario. So this is the only modification in this draft. Next slide. So initially the question was that, so first of all, if the draft is ready for working group last call, so depending on the feedback of the working group. Reading the draft, I've noticed that the conclusion section of the draft is not is empty.
Which section?
Conclusion.
Conclusion. Oh.
So you have the description of the 3 scenarios, 3 possible ways to solve this issue, but the conclusion is empty, saying to be done. So I was wondering if it is ready for working group last call or so.
So with the omission of trans taken from the document, shouldn't the title change then too? Isn't the title of the draft
could you
do with Multrans?
Probably. Maybe could you?
Yeah. We have the draft name up there.
Yeah.
Multrans address acquisition. Yeah.
It is in the on the file of the so the title of the
It's
file.
in the title itself.
Okay.
So I don't think we need to rev that right now, but something to note before it actually goes further.
Yeah.
And when you do update it, reference what it's replacing, so the history tracks with it, and then I'll just accept it and move it forward.
Okay, so I will give this indication to the authors.
So who has read the draft in its current form? All right, the authors and myself. All right. So this can make it really tough to get honest feedback to the list on whether it's ready for last call. And let me just make a suggestion to those of you who also have active drafts, that the reading of others' work and involving and participating is as important as them doing for you. So just something to consider.
Yeah.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, actually the draft is simple, few pages, and so it is for information. So I think you just need not even 5 minutes to read it and to see if it is complete from your point of view. It is not yet. I think that the next version will be, because we will update the conclusion section. But based on that, I think.
Okay, so if you plan on updating that and revving it,
I will check this with the authors. But
okay,
from my point of view, as an external reader, you have a conclusion and it's set to be done. So you don't know what kind of conclusion will be put there. Either a recommendation.
Then it's hard to adopt it as a last call, right? Until we have that done. All right, so if you're going to make those changes and rev it, rev the name with it, reference the document swap, then we'll move from there.
Yeah, and I think it can be done through using the mailing list. You don't have to wait for the next
okay, excellent.
meeting.
Very good.
Okay.
All right. We have awesome minutes being taken by our minute taker there. Thank you, Mike. I'm pointing around your quote. He happens to be like right off your right ear. So I would have missed you, right? But you would have heard it whiz by. Okay, anything else? Any agenda items? Any flagrant bashing before we go off and find food and fun? That's it. Blue sheets. Who has not signed a blue sheet? All right. Hop on up and do it. Pick the one with the functional pen. I don't know which one that would be, but we did note that one was dead. All right. Thank you for your time. Thank you for participation. And you have all been given 2 do's, which is read the drafts and respond to the list. And thank you. What, pardon me?
Only 4 people on the blue sheet.
Well, there's probably another one going on that has a functional pen. Where's the other blue sheet? I see one, and there's one probably sitting in a chair in the back.
I signed it. Ah, Carlos has it.
It's just go.
I don't know if your chair.
All right. There it is. Look at that. Sir. Okay, right.